You're too late. I've already summoned Meteor. Okay.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to the L2R2 PlayStation podcast. My name is Fonzie. I'm joined by my co-host, Callum Monroe. Callum, how the heck are you? It's been a minute.
It has, yeah. Yeah, all good. Just as usual, busy with work. I did have some time off work recently, actually, for Final Fantasy.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, been good, been busy, been trying to actually been trying to sort of get rid of a few bad habits recently. So I'm kind of in one of those parts of sort of life that you go through all the time if you're me, where you're like, right, that's it, I'm going to stop doing this, I'm going to stop doing that and start doing this. So we'll see how it goes. We're in the
Nice.
infancy stage.
Any public ones? What are some habits you want to get rid of?
Yeah, an interesting one actually, which is partly related to like a charity thing for work, but we have a few Muslim colleagues on the IT team at work, and one of them decided to, because Ramadan's coming up, do like a charity thing where people can sort of take part in Ramadan who aren't Muslim. So me and someone else from work are going to try and do the whole month, and we had a big conversation with him, and he sort of explained all, because we want to try and do it properly, really not try and like half-ass it. We want to treat it with respect and everything. So got that sort of approaching, I think, sort of from tomorrow. So that kind of, and then the selfish part of it is it will be good for me because fasting in general is fairly good to help lose weight and things. So that's sort of one part of it, and then the rest of it is all just like cutting out drinking, smoking, all that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
but yeah, it's just sort of one of those where I'm trying to kind of do lots of things all at once, and I think for me it's kind of weirdly the best way to do it. So I just need to stop getting fatter, because it's really not very good. But yeah, but that's sort of the most interesting one. The rest of it's just general, like stop eating so much, start getting up earlier, start doing more exercise, and the boring stuff like that.
Yeah, I hear you. It's I'm getting round to myself over here in the States. Yeah, it's just and we had like me and my wife will go. We started going on hikes a bit more too, and like just trying to stay active. But yeah, it sucks. It's why does it have to be the worst thing in the world? Like if it was fun, then great.
Yeah,
We'd be doing it
well,
every day.
it's so odd as well. Like I went boxing this morning, and I feel amazing after exercise. Like
Right.
and every time I'm like, I don't know why I get so lazy and don't want to do it, because I always feel so good, and even during it is fine. Like I don't mind working hard and training and getting out of breath, but it's just that before, and it kind of bleeds into the same feelings I get just in the mornings, like waking up. The laziness that I have inside me is so overpowering that despite how much I tell myself, how good does this feel right now? It's almost just like the kind of lazy part of me is much more powerful at some point. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm feeling optimistic about this one. When you feel good about the kind of changes you're trying to make. So
Right.
again, that might just be my my brain being on one side, and then everything will come back later. But yeah, so fingers crossed, positive thoughts and things. So yeah, we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. Well, I'm praying for you over here for your health, and
Thank you. Yeah,
and
I
also
need it.
trying to get some out of the universe for myself. But yeah, you
Yeah.
mentioned like it's the before. That's the biggest hurdle. It's like once you get out there, then you're like, okay, you're doing it, and then of course you always feel better afterwards. But
Yeah,
just trying to remember that the carrot on the stick thing, and then
exactly.
doing it.
Yeah, it is very, very difficult, but yeah, being all good. Other than that, how are things with you? I know you've been busy and everything, but how's everything over in the States?
Yeah, in the States, we're still
Still
here.
functioning?
Yep, still doing the thing. Yeah, just been busy with the coffee trailer and
Yeah.
doing that. I can't get away from stupid people. I get a lot of dumb
No.
questions, as I tell you every
Yeah.
time. But one lately is I have a very like thin plastic little like screen that I cover this service window with, so you can see me. You right, so through it, it's just to, like help keep the heat in and stuff. And I'll have so many people walk up and they see me. I'm looking at them. they'll walk up to the coffee trailer and they'll just look me dead in the eye and be like, "Oh, are you open?" And I'm there standing, lights on, everything. I'm just like, yeah, I it takes so much strength to just not want to call
Yeah.
them a fucking idiot because I want their money. So I
Yeah.
just go, yep, customer service face on. But it's just, I get a lot of those, man. And it's just, or lately, like I've been going to a new spot. It's at this apartment complex. And I get at least 2 people a day now who drive up or walk up and be like, "Oh, I didn't know you're here today." And I'm like, "Yep." And they go, "Okay, cool." And then they just walk away. Like it has to coincide with them in their mind knowing I'm going to be there to buy a drink, but just like, just buy a drink or just give me some money and then, keep walking if you had other
Yeah.
plans.
Yeah. People, you can't underestimate people's stupidity sometimes, especially when you're like in the service industry in some way. Um, Like I remember when I used to work at bars, you'd have people come up to me whilst I stood behind the bar saying, "Oh, is this the bar, or do you know where the bar is?" It's like, no, I don't actually. I have no idea. All like the beer pumps and everything.
Yeah. It's like, did
But
you
yeah,
drive here? Should you operate a motor vehicle? Like somebody should
that's
help
what's
you home.
scary, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, the scariest thing is at work when you hear some of the things these people say or ask, and it's like, and then you think about how much they're probably paid, and it's
Yeah.
like, geez, must be easy then.
Yeah, it's nuts. Or there's a thing with caffeine. I guess I don't think about it because I'm just fully like all my nerves are burned off with caffeine
Mm,
for the past,
mhm.
20 years. But like I'll get some events where there's old people and it's, maybe like 9 in the morning. I had one event recently, it was a 5K run. And so I'm there, it's early, so it's like 9:30, and this older lady comes up and I don't have decaf, so that's one thing about my coffee
Yeah.
trailer. And she's looking around, she sees the sign, she's like, "Oh, bummer, I wanted a decaf drink." And so she left, but I'm like, it's 9, is it too late for coffee at 9:30? I know
Yeah.
you're in bed by like 2 or whatever because you're old as fuck, but like, come on, you can handle some regular coffee
Yeah.
at 9:30.
Yeah, I mean my partner's the same. She will only drink decaf coffee because she doesn't like the kind of art
Oh,
that
sure, there is
it
the,
can
yeah, there's health
sometimes
stuff
give
in there,
you.
I forget.
But I say to her, that's all part of it. It's part of the fun.
Yeah,
Not
it
sure if
makes
you're
you
having
feel
a heart
alive.
attack. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that will wake you up more than thinking you might be having a heart attack. So
Yeah.
that's what's so good about it. But no, I did. Yeah, I appreciate. Some people do have different reactions and things, but also like
Yeah, yeah.
you need to think about it for yourself as well. In that, like sometimes it's just easier for you to not have to, have both, and because you have to think about them buying it and stocking it, make sure.
Yeah.
I'd assume it's not as popular, so you'd have to make
Oh
sure it like
no, it's way less popular.
keeps fresh and
You need a separate grinder. It's a whole thing.
yeah. So yeah, it's not worth it for those who are not, they don't have the balls to
Yeah.
have possible heart attacks. Yeah,
Yeah. To have anxiety 24/7
yeah, exactly.
like
Yeah,
we do.
yeah, they're not
How are
strong enough.
how are the pups? Or the
Yeah,
pups?
yeah, she's great. Yeah, she's 9 months now. Sort of end of the month she'll be 10. So 10 months. So she's getting to that cheeky stage. But yeah, it's really sort of touch wood. She's been. I couldn't really ask for a better behaved dog. Really, I mean, she has her moments, but
Yeah.
you can't. I kind of assumed the worst when we first got her. I thought, God, this is going to be like, and it was, difficult, especially at first. But she's just great. She's really cuddly. Yeah, loves our company, and as we sort of starting to take her for bigger walks and things, she's mostly well behaved. I think the worst aspect of her behavior is that she's too friendly.
Mm,
If that could be seen as a negative, in that she just wants to say hello to every dog, every person,
yeah.
which is nice, but not every person or dog especially wants to be said hello to. So that's kind of the main anxiety I have when I take her out, is always on the lookout for other dogs and people and everything. But yeah, I mean, I think an important thing as well is not to expect everything from her at this age as well. But yeah, I'm loving it. It's amazing having her. And yeah, I can't even really remember what it was like
Right.
before I had
Same
her, really.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she's doing great.
That's awesome. Yeah, we our dog Rune, who's the newest one, he ate a bunch of chicken bones apparently when we were gone last night.
Nice.
We're at a
Yeah.
friend's house and came home and found this empty box. I remember eating these chicken wings. I ate them
Yeah. Yeah.
and put them in the box in the bin, garbage bin. Then
Yeah.
we get home in the morning and there's just the empty box outside. So he somehow dug it out No chicken
He
bones to be
probably
seen.
he probably knew that like the exact moment you put it in the bin, has been waiting for that opportunity to grab them.
100%. He has his
Yeah.
notebook and he's like, okay,
Yeah.
6 o'clock, you put him in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course Googled it, and everything you can Google is like, your dog's gonna die, it's dead,
Oh
basically.
yeah,
Just start
yeah,
burying
yeah,
it. So I'm like, oh shit.
yeah, yeah,
We watched him overnight. This was just last night, and he's okay. He's fine. He's just kind of
yeah.
processing but it's just we were worried for a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like googling stuff is awful. I mean, it's so much like having a kid. I guess is in that you're just constantly worried and anxious because you're in charge of their life basically.
Right.
Um, and yeah, we've done the same. Especially during those early months. Just googling everything. But you do have to, I guess, Google stuff as well. In that there's so many things that you don't know are like alert, like the dogs can't have as well.
Yep.
So we make sure we're like if we're giving her something that she hasn't had before, like she can't eat leeks or like onions or like things in that kind of family and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it is funny how you'll you'll read one thing and it's like one person will say, "Oh, it's fine, my dog eats that every day," and another person is like, "Your dog's dead.
Yeah.
It's dead now."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we get that all the time. And I'm awful for it. Like I get so anxious about like tiny things when I probably shouldn't. Like I don't like her chewing sticks too much. 'Cause I've read it can like get lodged in their
Yeah.
throat and their teeth and things like that. But then I know my partner's brother's dog like lives on sticks and things like that. So you just I guess like you said, you just have to watch them and play it by ear in a lot of things. As long as it's not poisonous, I mean, everything digests eventually. Everything will come out eventually. It's
Right.
just as long as it goes in and doesn't get stuck,
Yeah.
then that's all right. But yeah, I'm sure that'll be fine. I mean, chicken bones is. I mean, I'm sure we've all eaten a few chicken bones by accident
Yeah.
and gristle and things. So yeah, I'm
Right.
sure a dog will be all right.
Yep. And he's fine. He could care less
Yeah.
what he ate. Well, Callum, we'll jump into some of the. Oh, I wanted to start off before we get into the tons of news articles,
Mm,
but what you've been playing? Because I know Rebirth came out. You've been eagerly
yes.
awaiting that. Any impressions
Yes.
on playing it?
Yeah, so I'm about 45 hours in. I
Whoa.
actually wanted to probably put in a few more hours by now, but it's one of those where it's such like an important game to me that I don't want to force it. So I just play it when I really feel like it. But there's also a lot of mini games and open world exploration and things to do outside of the kind of main path that's probably keeping me from just speed running through it, which is always good. But yeah, it's awesome. It's really really amazing. I think it reminds me a little bit of when I've played like the Yakuza games with how there's just so many like individual mini games that have so much like attention put into them, and they're almost like their own little sort of separate games, which is really fun. But as I'm getting further in, they're getting more and more frustrating and difficult. And as you know, I like getting platinum trophies, so that just adds to
Yeah.
the frustration that I'm going to have to bloody sit and go through all these mini games and try and get the best ranks on them and things. But yeah, it's great. And I've also been playing before Final Fantasy Persona 3 Reload as well, which is another amazing JRPG. Obviously, very different kind of game, but yeah, so been all JRPG'd out really, and then obviously a sprinkle of Helldivers when I get the chance.
Yes. Oh
But
yeah.
yeah,
Nice. Yeah, I've been jumping in Helldivers 2 a bit more. Did you get a chance to play the mechs that just dropped?
I haven't. No, I haven't played in probably about a week or so. So I haven't seen them. I've seen the mechs online and sort of the videos and things. So I'm looking forward to once I finish Final Fantasy. Probably I'll be dropping in a lot more on Helldivers. But yeah, it's just exciting because it's like the first thing. Um, and obviously, as we know, there's probably going to be lots and lots of stuff like this just being released as the game sort of goes on. So exciting to see the way they're supporting it and adding content. And yeah, I can't wait to. I think you have to be like level 25 to call them in. So I need to do a little bit of progressing before I can do that. But I also think you can just find them as you go along
Yeah.
as well, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's what I did yesterday, actually. So once they unlocked, and I love how they do it. They have, and it's been in the news. They have this game master, like it's like one sole person at
Yes.
the studio who's kind of controlling. I don't know about when stuff drops. It's about how it drops. Like the
Mm,
mechs were tied behind this one planet that had to be liberated, and they
yeah.
ramped everything up, like a ton more enemies, like for the entire planet. And people still got through it, and then that unlocked the mechs, and then after that, it seemed like when you dropped on that planet or whatever said planet, there was the option to just call it as your stratagem, even though you weren't level 25. So I was able to jump into
Okay.
one.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. And they're rad. And it's just like, yeah, you got a machine gun, a missile launcher, and it's still balanced really well where it's like you can't call your stratagems. You have to jump out of the mech. The
Right.
mech isn't all the ammo's, finite, of course. And then it
Mm,
can overheat, it can explode, that kills you. Like if you take enough damage, if you don't jump out right away.
yeah.
Really, really cool. Yeah, I just can't wait for the way they've structured how stuff unlocks, where you have to
Mm.
kind of play more as a community to then get the said thing. It's great.
Yeah, and I love how it seemed. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but I know that there was lots of like murmurs about these mechs for a while, and people had been like randomly coming across them, like way
Yeah.
before it had even been properly announced. So I don't know whether, like you said, this kind of game master person is just sprinkling things in super early to try and get like a buzz about it, and then like you said, they do the actual in-game like community mission that will actually unlock it for everybody, which is so awesome. I love that part of it, and it's such an interesting and unique way to kind of entice you back in to play. Yeah, I love it, and I think it just shows how much legs it has. Everyone's still. It's all I see everywhere is
Yeah.
Helldivers. It's just it seems to really have like captured the zeitgeist and doesn't really seem to be going away, especially considering with Final Fantasy now out, which is obviously a massive game, maybe different audience, but that's just been in terms of like what's being talked about, and I'm in, my algorithm is heavily pointed towards JRPG stuff, and I haven't really, thankfully, seen anything Final Fantasy, which is good for spoilers and things. But yeah, Helldivers just seems to be still mopping up everyone's attention.
Yeah, and it's what, a month, maybe a little bit over a month since release, and so they're still keeping everyone's attention. I think how they're releasing stuff is
Mm.
just brilliant, and this is like the first maybe like big new
Yeah.
addition, but even how they can kind of rally people to one planet to just tackle the same automatons, the same bugs. That still gets people back into the mix because they want to join that kind of collective group that's all doing one thing.
And
I think
didn't we?
it's
Wasn't there like an order that was failed as well or something? And like it was like a
yeah.
massive thing. Like everyone was like, "Oh, we failed," and all this stuff. And so
There was a
it
planet.
is,
I
it
think it was
is just
automatons. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like this kind of meta that just exists in the game is so clever. It's so cleverly sort of manufactured in the first place, and then it's just everyone else is just kind of carrying it now and making it what it is, which I'm sure the developers are super pleased about because they don't really have to do that much other than support the game. Everyone's doing the marketing for it.
Right. Yeah. No. It's great to see the success and how people are still playing it, still excited. I wonder if there's a with these kind of games, if you crack like I don't know, a month or 3 months and it's still super popular, if you kind of
Mm.
secure it where it's just one of those things people always plan on it being there and it's not going to fade away kind of thing. Like I think of when Fortnite first dropped, there was a lot of attention for it. And if you kind of exist a long enough, at least in people's mind in the short term, then it just becomes like a staple. And I wonder if
Mm.
I feel like Helldivers has already achieved that, where it's just a staple now because it's been so successful for a month now, a month and a
Yeah.
half, where in that whole space, live service games, you really live or die versus like those first couple weeks where it's like, is it going to be a hit or not?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, we know that there's probably going to be, a lot more content in terms of factions that you fight against. I know that there's been lots of murmurs about, is there going to be some kind of crossover with other, existing properties and things like that, which could be awesome. And
That's a way to go. Yeah.
yeah, but it'll be interesting to see how they're able to maintain it because obviously it was sold at 35, well, over here £35, and so not full price, half of what you'd expect to pay for a game like that. But that might have something to do with how big it got. Maybe if it was full price, which I think I think would definitely deserve to pay that for it. Maybe it wouldn't get that big splash it got at
Yeah.
first. But I think they've kind of shot themselves in the foot as well by making, and maybe this will change, but um, having like super nice microtransactions. Like everything's really cheap.
Yeah.
Like if you did want to buy any, but also you don't really need to because you get quite a lot of that currency in game. So I'm not sure how well the microtransactions are doing, but obviously those are the things in things like Fortnite, which is of course free to play, that kind of allow it to maintain the kind of flow and rhythm it has. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that changes, if they'll kind of start adding more things for you to spend your money on. But the fact that like the actual general content itself is always going to be, free editions is great for everyone.
And I would hope that they really are kind of behind the scenes, all hands on deck on creating new, just cosmetic stuff, because you do have like I've been playing the game a lot and I haven't bought anything besides buying the initial game. And I would, especially with like cosmetic stuff, if there's some really cool crossovers or just like more unique, different, capes and just like
Mm,
outfits. Like they're primed for like if they had that, I think they'd be making a ton more because
yeah.
it doesn't change the gameplay. Like it's just a fun thing to have. And I'm
Mm,
playing it so much that, I'll throw them a couple extra bucks, but there's just
yeah.
that store isn't there yet. And I think maybe they didn't realize like the huge
Yeah.
demand, the huge player base they'd have.
Yeah, because you don't get a lot of opportunity to spend your like in-game currency. You have the like recycling store, which you can only buy what, like four things.
Yeah, something like
Um,
that.
and I think even if you had to buy all four, I don't think it's necessarily that many credits. Like you can quite easily buy at least two out of the four things that you definitely want without spending a penny. And obviously you've got the like premium war bond or whatever, which again, if you just play through the game, get your super credits from your war bond, you can quite easily just unlock that. I mean, I know that you then have to then spend your medals on the items within it, so it doesn't actually really get you anything initially. But yeah, there's just not very many ways to, or not very many kind of things to tempt you into spending money, which is good, of
Right.
course. Especially considering, albeit it was £35, we did spend money to buy it. But I think maybe as time goes on, um, and they've kind of made their money from that initial purchase, maybe then they'll be like, well, like you've been playing it for 6 months, why not, pay for this, or why not
Right.
have a look at this new storefront we've just put in to try and get a bit more money. So I think they're in a unique position where I think if they were to do that cleverly, I think people would understand why they're doing it rather than the usual, microtransactions and things. So, but yeah, we'll see. It's just such an exciting game, and I think everyone's just super glad to see it take off because it was so unexpected, which is always nice. It's a nice feel-good story.
Yeah, I'm hoping we get the Lady Gaga, in event, concert. Like they just go full blown Fortnite mode, and we'll see that
Yeah,
soon. But yeah,
yeah,
and it's just like it's something that you can't really telegraph or like explain to these bigger companies. Like this is how you do it. Like you kind of make it to where I don't feel bombarded by microtransactions.
hmm
You create a world where I actually want to spend more,
yeah,
and
yeah,
rather these other big companies see this kind of format and they go, oh, that's cool. No, we're just going to go the other route and just bombard you with all this
yeah.
stuff that you don't want to buy, that's unnecessary,
And
or
I think sometimes those kinds of predatory, you know, things in games in like Call of Duty and that they're kind of bombarding you before you've even played the game. Like before you've even played the game, it's like here's our store and look at all these
right,
skins and cosmetics you can get, and I think that's the kind of difference is that it's not even necessarily um people are like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's only cosmetic. It's like, well, no, that's not the problem. It's just how it's like portrayed at you and just shoveled at you, and it's just like, and it kind of, I think it just belittles the game itself because it's like, well, was this where all the attention was on really, like just to make the most money? And I think, yeah, like you said, that Helldivers by not leaning into that, at least at the start, has allowed people to enjoy the game for what it is. So now if they were to start, I'm not saying they'll start like greeting you with like a shop page or whatever when you start, but it at least means that people know this is a game that they want to invest time into. Maybe they want to invest a bit more money, they'll get them, some cool stuff playing game, but it is a very fine line to tread.
Yeah.
And you know, the smallest decision could put off a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's crazy because one article I didn't pull up, but it was WB Games talking about the lackluster sales with Suicide Squad and
Mhm.
how instead of they came off, they're hot off the heels off the success of Hogwarts, and they had this big meeting, and they're like, well, we're gonna keep going and doubling down on live service games because we think that's still the future. But it's like they're just not seeing it, where it's like you had this one model successful, people want that, but you're still gonna try and go down this route that's
Mhm.
it's really hard to nail, and they obviously didn't nail it with Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
To see them just not reading the tea leaves, like a lot of these corporate, they're just so big and it takes so
Well,
long to make decisions.
yeah, I think that's what's problematic is that in Warner Bros. Case, you know, with Hogwarts Legacy as well. From what I understand, I haven't played it. I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan, but from what I understand, the game's not that good. Apparently, it looks great and there's some good things about it, but from what I've heard, it's not, you know, anything really to write home about in a lot of ways. But it's Harry Potter at the end of the day. And I know that it looks great. I know the world's very well realized, and I think that's all you kind of need for people to, you know, Harry Potter's got a massive fan base. So obviously that game's going to do well, and I think probably, I mean, I don't know how well Suicide Squad's done in terms of sales, but I imagine that's probably done well as well because it is Suicide Squad. So I think maybe they're not really, or I'm sure they do understand, but these are kind of products that will just sell irregardless of, as long as they're okay, which I
Yeah.
think both are at very, very least okay. You know, maybe even they're good games. I haven't played either of them, but I think that, yeah, they're just going to sell because of what they are and the audiences that they inherently have before the game's even out. So it will backfire, and you know that they'll shoot themselves in the foot if they don't realize that's the only reason that these games are selling. But because if they bring out a game of the same quality that is like its own IP, then yeah, that's where they'll probably start seeing problems, I'd assume.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these different companies make, these kind of wildly different decisions, and
Yeah.
we'll see. It's a changing model, and we'll get to some of the doom and gloom with the industry that's
Hell yeah.
perceived doom and gloom, but
Yeah.
we'll get into that as we get to it. I'm more positive on it. But Callum, we'll get into some of the news articles here. This first one's from a
Yes.
while ago. This is from Thursday, February 22nd. We experienced the first birthday of the PSVR 2. So PS Vita also launched in Europe that same date that PSVR 2 celebrated their birthday, making it 12 years old as well. Not much to write home about with the PSVR 2 birthday, but Sony did announce on that same day that there's going to be a PC support update where you can use your PSVR 2 on PC. How do you feel about that? I think that makes me way more interested in picking this thing up.
I think it's at least a positive step. I assume this means it will just work with like Steam VR games. That'd be my assumption. I don't know whether that means like
Or like
they're
fully
there to
open.
release. Yeah, I don't know whether that means they're to release some kind of PlayStation launcher, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Mainly because of, you know, with Helldivers, for example, they're probably seeing how much that sold on Steam and thinking, oh, if only we had our own launcher, we could have probably. But
Yep.
then again, it might not have then been that big if it wasn't on Steam. But so I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the kind of more minute details of what this means. But yeah, it's definitely good. And like you said, it definitely makes it more of an attractive product. But I still think it's edged by the Quest, which is, you know, well priced, works standalone.
Yep.
I mean, I even I think I mentioned to you last time we spoke actually that I was getting more interested in revisiting my Quest 2, and I did play a couple of games on it, and it's still like there's still new games coming out on it. There's still games coming to the Quest 2 that I didn't even think would be coming, and they still look great. And you know, this is me only of spending, I think that it was like £300 to get the Quest 2, and I haven't had to have anything else. I haven't plugged into my PC. Didn't even need to have a PS5 console, you know, to use it. So I still think it's you know, slightly superfluous in some ways, but saying that, I haven't used it. I don't know too many of the particulars about how it functions with PC and what it really means. So But yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on it, and I think it's more likely that I could be interested in it than it was before.
Yeah, same. I'm excited. I do want to see what those details are because it's really just that blog post mentions that there's going to be PC support. So yeah, what that
Right.
the
Okay.
extent of that is, we don't know, and there's no date on that. It's just this year at some point there's going to be a PC update. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
and you got the haptic thing, so you can do like your weird perverted VR chat with
Yeah, yeah.
haptics. I'm sure that will interest lots of people.
That's a feature of this device, really.
Yeah, yeah,
And those
perverted
controllers have a
haptics.
whole ring thing in it, so you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit. All right, Cal, moving on. We got some Elden Ring news. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree DLC drops June 21st this year, which is cool. But tied into the promotion, the interviews with that was this news on Bloodborne, sort of news. This is Elden Ring boss discusses Bloodborne remake from Eurogamer.com. From software boss Hidetaka, I'm going to butcher this, Hidetaka Miyazaki. Bam, nailed it. Discussed the possibility of a Bloodborne remake at a recent interview, saying, "It is a title we hold very dear, and just as much as our fans. It does make me very happy to see that there are still so many people passionate about it. Unfortunately, and I've said this in other interviews, it's not in my place to talk about Bloodborne specifically," said Miyazaki. "We simply don't own the IP yet From Software. For me personally, it was a great project, and I have a lot of great memories for that game, but we're not at liberty to speak to it." This at least shows it like, hey, they know that people want a Bloodborne PS5, some kind of reiteration of it, and it's not just left high and dry on PS4. But do you think, is there anything to mine from this, like that hopefully somebody cares about, carrying this on into these next gen consoles?
Yeah, I think there's lots of different ways you could probably interpret it. I mean, the fact is that, yeah, I believe the IP is owned by Sony, so it would need to be something that they decide to do. It's clear that, I mean, something must be happening, um, because it is just like so, especially after Elden Ring. Surely the amount of money that it would make would be insane. So and maybe that's why they're taking long. They don't want to just do a 60 FPS update,
Mm.
which is just so ridiculous that they haven't done that anyway. But yeah, it's probably they just want to make as much money as possible, which is why they're probably taking their time with it. But there's got to be something going on in the background that has made it take this long, like maybe some tumultuous development cycle or different ideas and things like that. But yeah, it's just one of those weird things where you know that they obviously know that everyone wants it, but why nothing's been done, is anyone's guess, I suppose. But yeah, I think this is probably just Miyazaki just being like, look, we've got this Elden Ring thing coming out. Please don't ask me about Bloodborne because
Right.
I don't own it, or we don't own
Yeah.
it. So
No, exactly. And it reminds me of, because you're right, where it's like they could have just dropped a 60 FPS
Mm,
update years ago. And maybe they're working on something, waiting to do some kind of, just new version,
mhm,
remaster rather. But it's weird with, you look at Naughty Dog, how they treated Last of Us 2. That had a free 60 FPS update on PS5. And
mhm.
then a
And then
year,
they
2 years
remade it.
later,
Yeah,
there was a full blown. So it's
yeah,
like they went the other route. So you
yeah.
could do it that way. It does remind me again of our buddy Colin Moriarty. He talked about on his podcast a couple weeks ago that he's heard that there was rumblings with Bluepoint handling some kind of remaster, but
Mm,
then he's heard nothing about that since. And this
right.
is maybe a year or two ago,
Mm.
which would be
I mean
nuts.
that
That'd
that
be
would be the
awesome.
obvious that would be the obvious answer because Demon Souls was amazing. I never played the original, but I really enjoyed Demon Souls. I think because of one, obviously, and it helps how good it looks, how well it plays. It looks it's one of the best looking games I played, and it's obviously a PS5 launch game. Yeah, it looks great, plays really well, and it has that kind of old school simplicity in its structure. I mean, it's very complex in other ways, like the I can't remember what it's called now, but there's lots of like your actions will turn your world into a certain light or dark, and then you have that also
Mm.
attached to your character, and it's yeah, super confusing, especially when you're trying to like 100% the game, which I still haven't done because it's just an absolute minefield of thinking that goes into what you need to do. But yeah, I think Bluepoint would be awesome because they've shown time and time again that they just understand what it is that they're required to do, and they do it to such an incredible level. But yeah, we'll just have to see. We'll definitely see something
You'd
before
have to
either of us
imagine,
are dead,
right?
unless we die soon. But yeah, it's one of those where it's just it's similar to when like the Final Fantasy VII remake rumors were around for ages, and Resident Evil 2 remake. We were just waiting for it to be announced, and it finally was in both those cases. So it's probably just another example of that.
And if you think of Sony's portfolio right now, they announced a couple, maybe about more than a month ago now, that there's not a big first party release
Mm,
till 2025. So this would be the year where it's like we don't have a lot, that's not
mm,
third party or whatever. So if you, of course, I imagine it's not ready yet. That's why. But if
mm,
you had that ready to go, if you're planning correctly, you drop that this year. That's another way to just like drum up a lot of attention for
mhm.
PS5 this year, and then hold off
Yeah.
until next.
Or
But
even just announcing it and saying, it's coming in 2025. I mean,
sure,
I don't think people necessarily even want it to come out. Like, it's not that people want it in their hands right now. I mean, of course they do, but they just want to know it exists, I think.
they want to know. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a real annoying one. But yeah, I think people do need to remember that the amount of time people waited for that Final Fantasy remake and the Resident Evil 2 remakes, which were PS1 games, and then both came out on PS4, so could be worse.
Maybe PS7 will get that Bloodborne 60
Yeah,
FPS game.
exactly. Yeah.
Nice. We'll kind of move on to some really lame news. So we got PlayStation is laying off 900 staff across Naughty Dog, Insomniac, and other studios. Articles from Engadget. Sony Interactive Entertainment announced last week, well, this is like 2 weeks ago, it's laying off around 900 staff from its PlayStation division. Roughly 8% of its department headcount. Insomniac, Naughty Dog, and Guerrilla Games are all affected by the cuts. Sony's London studio, which had been working on a co-op multiplayer game for PS5, is shutting down entirely, while Firesprite will also lose some staff. In addition, PlayStation will lay off workers from its technology, creative, and support teams. According to Bloomberg, a live service Twisted Metal game was in early development at Firesprite and is among the canceled projects. So that's a huge bummer. That was we're now into March. This is in February when this is revealed, I want to say. But the first couple months of 2025-4 have been really heavy with a lot of these
Mhm.
layoffs, and
Yeah.
PlayStation is among the list now. How do you feel about, in addition to this, the Twisted Metal possible game that was canceled? I know we talked about, it was a couple years ago. There was
Mm.
another developer that had made Destruction All Stars. I think they were rumored to be
Yes.
working on something.
Yeah.
Seems like it was handed to Firesprite.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's horrible ways. It's got to the point now, especially as we're coming to April, at the end of this fiscal year. I assume it's gonna just keep going until then, and then it will sort of hopefully plateau. But obviously, it's the kind of backlash from the kind of overhiring and the
Yeah.
overspending during COVID. Um, and I think what sucks is the people losing their jobs are not the people who caused this. The people who caused this and made those shit decisions are the ones still in their job, earning loads and loads of money.
Yep.
So that's the most annoying thing, is that the people who should be laid off are the people who caused this situation in the first place, not the people who are just working their job. So yeah, it's really awful, and I think the only silver lining you can, if you can even call it that, is that hopefully now, following on from sort of April, this will be a lesson learned for those idiots up in their ivory towers making these stupid decisions. But yeah, it just sucks that the people who suffer are people who have nothing to do with the reason that they're in this situation to begin with.
Yeah, it's unfortunate across the board. Every time this stuff happens, it sucks, and it's hit a lot of their big studios, like they mentioned Naughty Dog. And I wonder if
Mm.
part of that is, they hired a bunch of people to help them with this live service
Sure,
game, and now
sure.
it's canceled, and it's like, well, you got nothing to do here, so
Yeah,
we gotta let you go.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts, and it's just like you mentioned, where it's the people that should be held accountable. They're just kind of like whoopsie daisy, and then they kind of keep
Mhm.
moving on.
Yeah, it's. I think the scary thing is I know people at some of these studios. I know some people at Firesprite, and I knew people at Blizzard as well when that all went down. And you really get to see the kind of fear from them. When this happens, because they don't know about it until we do as well.
Yeah.
So they just kind of walk into work one day, and as I'm sure you'll touch on in a minute with the Jim Ryan pictures, it's just like they just don't care. Like no matter what they say in their press releases, they just don't care. They just see everything as figures and numbers and a means to an end, and it's just yeah, it's ridiculous. And especially considering, you know, these people that don't care are the ones that cause the situation in the first place. And I know it's easy for us to say, in hindsight, what, surely you knew that after COVID, all this spending was going to go down. People were going to, I mean, even looking at the Final Fantasy sales, there's probably more factors to this, but the 7 Remake, I think, sold something like 600,000 on launch in Japan, and I think Rebirth sold something like 300,000 because
Oh wow.
people aren't stuck at home anymore. So to me, it seems like a fairly easy thing to understand, but yeah, unfortunately, these people that earn hundreds and thousands of dollars a year and make all these decisions, unfortunately, like we were saying earlier, are pretty stupid. It seems.
Yeah.
There's no way else to put it. They just all seem like they're yeah, incredibly stupid, and then the people who are actually doing the work in the trenches are the ones getting suffering. So yeah, it's very irritating. But yeah, fingers crossed, we'll just start to see the end of it as this kind of a financial year, you know, goes out, and then all of these companies start to reevaluate the way they look at things.
Yeah, or to touch on what you're saying, maybe it's even more nefarious, where it's like, oh, we knew that this crash was coming, but
Yeah,
the short
yeah,
time, it's like we're going to hire up because there's so much demand, there's so much to do, and
yeah,
we know that we're also going to dump these people at the end, which
yeah.
is just very
Yeah, I'm sure
frustrating.
that's the
And
case as well. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in some of these meetings, where they kind of make decisions. I mean, yeah, a lot of these people, I don't know how they live with themselves, to be honest. It's just, yeah, it's awful. Now you look at like Capcom, who've just done the opposite,
yeah,
just raised everyone's salary, and so it's obvious. So this shows that it is obviously a decision-making fault. Um, of these people, and that's where it's annoying, because if I make if I make lots of bad decisions at work that are, of that degree, I'll get fired. But these people don't. So yeah, it's pathetic.
yeah, and I think they're not getting fired because there was a boom, there was a profit
Mm.
made, and so like
Yeah,
on paper, that's what they're looking for as far as that
exactly. Yeah,
person's job, and so they go, okay, well,
yeah,
you were successful, and we just
yeah,
have to cut these people off, and
yeah.
it's a bummer. And then to lightly touch on the Jim Ryan thing, so there was a photo that was circulating on Twitter the day of that London Studios was announced that they were closing, and it's Jim Ryan at London Studios taking a picture. And then this has been picked apart a million times online. We don't know the context of, was he coming in for this special, like sending away party, or was he like, maybe he's walking by and they're like, "Oh, Jim," and he's like, I don't want to be here," but it's like they just round him in for a picture, and he knows behind the scenes what's going on, or he's like full blown, "I'm coming in for my free cake, and I'm
Hmm.
going to fire you in a day or two."
Yeah.
But it's not good optics.
No, it's horrendous, and I think even if any of the nicest possible explanations, like him, going to Sony London to have this discussion with the, higher ups about this, and then suddenly he gets asked for a picture. Like, just tell them, tell the people you're gonna fire that they're likely gonna get laid off soon.
Yeah.
Like, why does it have to be a secret? Especially to the people that are going to be affected by it. Yeah, just assholes, all of them.
Yeah, the secrecy is that's the like frustrating part, where it's like, just treat us like adults, like people.
Hmm.
Of course, the decision's been made. We can't, argue against it. Okay, we'll just be upfront because we have families, we have jobs. Some of us moved here. It's like, just tell us, man. Just
Hmm.
be upfront. But there's a lot of these like, okay, I got to go, and then you see a press release kind of thing announcing. It's like,
Yeah,
just try, and at least that goes a
yeah.
little more of like somebody's telling you firsthand. He's there in person, and you can maybe explain. There's a little more, I don't know, empathy, sympathy you can kind of get when somebody's
Mm.
right there telling you. Maybe it doesn't matter at all because it's like, okay, I still lost my job,
Mm.
but it's just a little bit can go a
He
long way.
he gets to resign and retire and go off in the sunset with, I'm sure, a shitload of money.
Oh yeah,
Um, so he can smile with that big smile on his face, and he probably feels nothing.
yeah,
Honestly, like the kind of person he is, you have to be a kind of person to be in his position, and those kinds of people generally, I'm not saying all of them, obviously, but generally to be able to do that kind of work, you have to be, you know, narcissistic arsehole, basically,
Yeah.
in general. So yeah, no sympathy for, you know, him or any kind. You know, I don't think there's any reason to even give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, there's no reasonable explanation whatsoever. Um, I think the only possible one could be if they knew they were getting laid off, but they still wanted a photo with him, which I don't think is true.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the only possible thing where I would say, oh, okay, at least he came in and was honest with them, and then they still wanted a photo, but obviously not. Um, yeah, definitely, it's just yeah, it's awful.
That's, I mean, it's, corporations, it's like they're not your friend. Their bottom line is making a profit. It's just keeping
Yeah.
that in mind, as a employee, as a
Hmm.
worker, like, and that's where you see all these different stories of people trying to unionize. And it's like, I support that. It's like, you got to protect yourself because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, at least from the top down, they're not going to try and get your back. So you have to do what you have to do to kind of arm up against that.
Yeah, and I have to say, to sort of put, I guess, a positive spin on it is, where I work, Sumo, they've been great during this period, very reassuring and doing what they can to put the people first, which I think is really nice. So it's definitely not all bad, but
Yeah.
um, unfortunately, a lot of it is.
Right. Yeah. To end this, I just watched, there's a awesome movie about BlackBerry, about the BlackBerry cell phone.
Yeah.
And it's just like not a documentary. It's like it's a retelling of the rise and fall of that company
Mm.
and all the stuff behind the scenes. And it has, there's the Glenn Howerton. He's from It's Always Sunny. He's one
Yes.
of the main characters. It's a fantastic fucking movie. You got to watch it. It's like
Yeah.
$5 on Google
What's
Play
it
or
called?
whatever.
Sorry.
It's called BlackBerry.
Oh, it's called BlackBerry, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it's just about the
Yeah.
rise and fall of that
Yeah.
phone,
Yeah.
and just like you see these corporations, and at least with Glenn Howerton's character, just like the deals that are being made that are just like screwing other people,
Mm.
and just it's just really amazing how, and it's kind of a dramatization of what happened, but
Sure.
it just kind of also paints a picture of these people are trying to make as much money as possible, and at the just throwing whoever under the bus that they can to kind of make it happen
Yeah.
and not reading the signs and just like the fall of this company. It's nuts. You got to watch it.
Yeah. No, it sounds great actually. Yeah, I think it's an important side of things that people need to understand. For example, those people getting a photo with Jim Ryan, like it's they obviously revere him in some way.
Right.
That they to the point they want a photo with him. But I think perhaps negatively, I think you have to have this view on all CEOs and CFOs and all these people that are in these positions, because again, to get to that position, it's very likely you've had to make some pretty horrific decisions to benefit yourself and your company rather than the
Right.
people who work for you, who are ultimately what make your company tick. So I think that's a good baseline to have, and then obviously take people at face value when you get to meet them, speak to them, I guess. But yeah, no, that sounds like a great watch. Yeah, I need to watch that. In fact, just talking about things to watch, I think I've said to you before I don't watch many things, but I've just watched completely unrelated, by the way.
Yeah.
But the first 3 episodes of that Shogun on Disney Plus,
Oh, I keep hearing it's
it
fantastic.
is incredible. It's yeah, just whilst I remembered about watching things, yeah, it's maybe recommend waiting for it all to come out because I've just finished the third episode and now I'm like reeling and needing to watch it all.
Yeah.
But absolutely awesome
Is
show.
it based on a property or it's like a whole new thing?
Yeah, I believe it's based on a book. I hadn't heard of the book before, but yeah, it's set in like the 1600s in Japan, and it's really interesting because it's about the kind of when the Portuguese used to trade with Japan secretly and were building like Catholic kind of churches and things over there, and it's a really cool show. It's one of those shows where you don't really know what the stories or the ultimate like plot's going to be until maybe halfway through the second episode, but when it clicks and you know what the kind of yeah, like intrigue is, it's very difficult to stop watching. But yeah, definitely recommend it.
And Shogun are different from samurai. Is that, am I merging into
Yeah,
different
so
things?
the Shogun is like the kind of military governor and like ruler of all of Japan, or the
Mm,
shogunate, I think it's called. And then samurai are the specially trained warriors. Then you have like ronin, which are like mercenaries from Japan and things like that. So, but yeah,
gotcha.
it's really cool, and it's got a cool blend of like you know subtitled like Japanese, of course, and then you have your English speaking. It's kind of strange at first because you've got the Japanese and the Portuguese, but the Portuguese all speak English.
Okay.
Um, but to them, they're speaking Portuguese, if that makes sense. So
Gotcha. Gotcha.
once you get your head around that, it's yeah. Just on whilst I remembered, I just had to quickly throw that recommendation out because I'm
Yeah.
very enamored with it at the moment.
I keep hearing good things. Yeah, that's on my list of stuff. We did just, it's another segue that doesn't make any sense, but we started watching True Detective, which has
Oh
just
yeah,
been around for a
yeah,
while, but we started
yeah.
watching the first season, and that one is fantastic. Let me tell you.
Yeah, I need to get around to that as well. I think my partner really likes it. She watched the latest series, but yeah, it's one I haven't watched before.
Yeah, and I just because it's been all over the news, the newer season, and how I guess somehow it ties back to the first, and so it's
Right.
like I've been meaning to watch this. Let's jump in, and Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson are in it. They're fantastic,
Yeah.
and it is pretty heavy, like the subject matter, very heavy. Sometimes it's
Mhm.
like we'll wait a couple of days before watching another episode, but it's shot really well.
Is it
It's
Vince Vaughn in the second series as well?
yeah,
Is it?
we just started
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, Vince Vaughn,
Yeah. Nice.
Colin Farrell also
Oh,
in that
okay.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's quite a cool little duo. But yeah, that's another one I need to watch as well. And it's because I thought it had been cancelled, but I now hear they're maybe making a new series. I don't know. Maybe I was just incorrect initially, but yeah, that is something I need to watch because I've heard amazing things about it.
yeah. I know there was a lot of time between the third season and this newer one, so maybe it
Right.
was canceled in between then, and then
Yeah.
they greenlit the other one. But yeah,
Yeah.
very very good. It seems like it's a different sort of series or like story that they're telling every time, except for the new
Sure.
season that somehow like ties all together. But
Yeah.
haven't got there yet. Well, Callum, we'll keep on going. This last one here is PlayStation backed Deviation Games has closed. This is from VGC.com. The studio, which was founded in 2020 by two experienced Call of Duty developers, didn't get a chance to release its debut project, an original IP, which was set to be exclusive to PlayStation platforms. Deviation was reportedly over 100 strong in 2021 when it signed the deal with Sony. At the time of its announcement, the studio told GamesIndustry.biz that its PlayStation deal ensured complete financial security for years and years to come. But now it has since been shut down. And I think more, this is also telling with, and kind of ties to Sony's plans with live service games. They've been pretty public about making a change where they're not going to double down on this format as they were initially decided a couple years ago. You see, The Last of Us multiplayer canceled. This game also shuttered. So it seems like this is just tied to them shifting away from that model, live
Yeah.
service.
Yeah. It's just more poor decisions. And yeah, I think it's. I think those kinds of things are slightly different in that you can be like, right, this is going to be our kind of you know our next kind of push, and then it doesn't quite work out or whatever. But it is just frustrating that I assume all these people have now lost their jobs as well. But I know that this one in particular was slightly more strung out. Like I know that the game got cancelled, and then there was a few months afterwards, and now obviously it's closed. So hopefully not quite as abrupt and just sudden. Hopefully Jim Ryan didn't visit them like the day before that they were all getting fired or something.
Yeah, and he's still active, right? Like I know that's a transition between when he fully leaves PlayStation.
Mm.
So if you see him walking up to your house, it's like, no, go away, Jim Ryan.
Yeah,
Don't want to
yeah.
see you. Yep. Well, keep moving on here. We got PlayStation Portal has been hacked. So this is from Verge.com. This a couple weeks ago. Sony's new PlayStation Portal has been hacked by Google engineers to run emulated games locally. Two Google engineers have managed to get the PPSSPP or SPSPSPS emulator, that's how I call it, running natively on the PlayStation Portal, allowing a Grand Theft Auto PSP version to run on the Portal without Wi-Fi streaming required. Nguyen, I think, is one of the actual people who has cracked this, also confirms that the exploit is all software based, so it doesn't require any hardware modifications like additional chips or soldering. All we have as proof of this running is a photo of Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories on the PS Portal. This is I'm kind of jacked for this because the PS Portal is an amazing device, and for streaming, I like the idea of just using it elsewhere, like on a PC, if that opens that up. I know it can, emulate at least, I imagine nothing more than like a PSP. Like, I don't know if you're getting Vita games on the chip because whatever
Yeah.
hardware on the device is just for like handling streaming and stuff. So it's not crazy advanced. But how do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's cool. It's always cool to see things like this. Yeah, like you said, I can't imagine it would be able to do much more. I mean, I'm even a little bit surprised it can handle, um, PSP, because
PSP.
emulation isn't easy, uh, especially when you would assume that the only thing inside that screen is the ability to connect to the internet and to, turn on.
Right.
So yeah, it's impressive. And yeah, who knows? Maybe like they accidentally like all of these kind of screens they're using, maybe they're just all devices, like old devices that actually have some kind of internal components. I know that there was talk about them possibly being like old decommissioned Xperia devices or something, so maybe there's a
Oh,
little bit more under the hood than we think, but yeah, interesting. We'll have to see. I mean, it's a great little device. I mean, I haven't really been using mine much, but I did uh, get it back on the other night. But yeah, very cool.
yeah. The Portal would be great for playing games like Rebirth. I imagine you can
Mm,
jump in. It's not like you need one for one, 60 frames per second, all the time. It's like it can handle
yeah,
that kind of flow. I
it
imagine.
interestingly, I haven't tried Rebirth on there. I actually turned it on because I saw Resistance Retribution, the
Oh
PSP
yeah.
game, had come to PlayStation 5 in some
Hmm.
way. So I thought that'd be a cool one just to try out. Um, I think I will probably play Rebirth on it when I kind of finish up the story and I need to just do clean up.
Yeah.
But on that note, where you just said about 60 FPS, I have been playing Rebirth in graphics mode, which is the first game I think since the conception of those two settings that I've chosen that, and I've got to say it actually looks. And for some reason, the 30 FPS isn't bothering me with it. I don't really know why. But mainly because on performance mode, the resolution is very icky.
I see.
It's like very noticeably blurry. I mean, obviously it runs super smooth when you're on that mode, but and then graphics mode, like everything is super super crisp. Um, but yeah, obviously you have 30 FPS. But well, yeah, weirdly, I don't know what it is, and whether they've got some kind of trick with like VRR or motion blur or something that kind of doesn't make it seem as bad. But yeah, but it's yeah, I meant to mention that earlier. Yeah, it's the only game where graphics mode is like I'm able to stomach it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting because I'm in the same boat now where and I wasn't always that case. I think it was the end of the PS4 era where I started really preferring, 60
Mm,
FPS, and then at that point building a PC, and I'm like, oh my God, there's more than 30 frames per second,
yeah.
and now it's like that's what I want. But you're right, where you can kind of retrain your brain either way, like playing
Yep.
Starfield on Xbox when it came out, and it still has only a 30 frames per second mode on Xbox, and so it's just like okay, you kind of after an hour or so, it's like I'm just playing this, I'm used to it. We jumped into oh god, we did for the PS Book Club. We played a older PS Vita game that was remastered. The Gravity Rush. There you
Gravity
go.
Rush. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
30 frames, and it's like you just kind of get used to it. So it's not the end of the world, and it seems like with Rebirth, the trade off is hard, where it's like you get that 60 frames, but then visually it's
yeah,
not good. To where I would
yeah,
lean more on that visual benefit
yeah.
than the frame rate.
It's an interesting situation. I don't know whether it's going to um, become more of a thing as these games get more graphically intensive, bigger worlds as well. But it's nice to know that it's not that much of an issue for me. And I understand that not all 30 FPS, you know, modes are the same. I know there's like to do with like frame pacing and just general kind of how the game feels in that mode. Like I remember playing. I played when I first played Starfield. Actually, I played on my laptop where I was able to get 60 FPS and everything. And then I played on my Series S on a 4K TV, and it felt like there was like a second delay
Yeah.
before every input, just because it was so like stuttery. Um, but yeah, it's running. I'd assume at the same FPS as Final Fantasy is, and I genuinely cannot even notice any kind of stutter unless I put it on performance mode and then straight back. And even then, I only notice it for about 10 seconds. Then my eyes just adjust. And I'm not someone who can easily do that. Like I will go for 60 FPS every time. But in this case, it seems to be fine. So yeah, it's just really interesting. I don't know because I've been trying to avoid all Final Fantasy VII discourse, but I don't know
Yeah.
whether it's just me because yeah, I've never had it massively noticeable on performance mode where I'm like, that is super blurry over there. As soon as I put it on graphics mode, it's like crystal clear.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting to see sort of where your kind of preferences lie in that, because I didn't realize I was sort of really a resolution snob until sort of I saw this game and how bad it can look in some places.
Yeah, I think when you really notice there's a huge difference, then you kind of have to make that, that trade off, because yeah, I would also, where it's like, just like when the visuals are downgraded too much, I understand that the gameplay is buttery smooth, then it's like, okay, I still want it to still. And then you see that other mode where it's like, it looks so great. It's like, I'm just going to make that trade off,
Yeah,
and it's fine. And
yeah,
this is super nerdy, but there's a argument for 40 frames per second. So
yes.
I'm a big Digital Foundry fan, and they'll break down, which I haven't seen. I'm sure they have broken down Rebirth gameplay, but a
Mm,
lot of newer games, like there was Spider-Man 2, I think even Miles Morales, there's a newer Ratchet and Clank. They have these in between modes where they
mhm.
unlock a 40 frame per second mode. So it's more than 30. So you don't get that same lag feeling that you do playing it, but
Yeah,
it's just fast enough in frame rate where it feels almost like 60. But then the
yeah,
visuals, they can handle doing like the 4K, full blown visuals at 40 frames. And it feels really good. It's like a nice in between.
yeah. I tried that with Ratchet and Clank actually, because you need to have an 120 hertz panel for it.
Oh, yeah, for
Otherwise,
it to like cut it in half
yeah.
evenly or whatever.
Otherwise, I think it will arguably look worse than 30. But yeah, I did it with Ratchet and Clank, and it was really good. Yeah, really, really impressive. Does make a huge difference, and it kind of gives you a good reason to have, because I mean my TV is 120 hertz, but I've never really used that.
Mm,
I mean my monitor that my PC is 144, and I can actually make use of that
yeah.
because obviously PC games and things like that. But with TVs, it's a little bit more difficult because there's not many games with 120 hertz modes, and if there are, it's likely that they're going to like turn everything down in order
Yeah.
to get that. So I don't even know if it's worth it. But so yeah, I think it'd be nice to see that more. I think 120 hertz TVs are becoming more and more popular.
Mm,
So it would make sense, I think, to just go with that because you might as well. I mean, I'd assume anyway that the reason 30 FPS is the lock is because that's just how it's been, and that just sort of taking into account 60 hertz panels and things. But I think yeah, as more and more people ask for it, I'd assume it's not too much of an ask to get a 40 FPS kind of version as well. But maybe it is. I don't
yeah. It's interesting. And I don't know either. I'm not a smart math guy, but
know.
sometimes it works. All right, Kyle, moving on here. We got some PS5 Pro rumors. PS5 Pro likely out later in 2024, analysts say. It's from IGN. Analysts have told CNBC that a souped-up PS5 refresh would be designed to boost interest in the console after Sony admitted it expects the console sales to start declining year after year, year over year, starting next fiscal quarter in April 2024. It would also launch ahead of the release of Grand Theft Auto 6 in 2025, which is expected to significantly boost console game sales. Another analyst suggested Sony will not cut the price of the current PS5, even when the PS5 Pro comes out, due to pressures on the company's margins. For context, the PS4 Pro launched in November 2016, 3 years after the PS4 launch. If a PS5 Pro does launch later this year, it would come 4 years after the PS5 launched in November 2020. So, talking about PS5 Pro, on paper, it seems like if you're following that same launch with the PS4, the time is now. Although I kept seeing this pop up, and it feels too soon to me, but I don't know if I'm crazy. Although year-wise, on paper, it sounds like this is when you would launch one. It just seems
Hmm.
like PS5 just came out, but I guess it's been around for a while. But what do you think about a PS5 Pro, and any interest in upgrading to whatever this monstrosity would cost?
Yeah, I think I'd love to get one. I think I'm just, I'm in a slightly different situation to when I was back when the PS4 Pro came out. So I think I'd be happier to kind of grab one. But also, I really need a PS5 with a disc drive. Is the main thing.
Mm,
That digital PS5 that I got has hamstrung me. I can't watch. I've got like Lord of the Rings on 4K Blu-ray. I can't even watch it on anything.
yeah.
Um, I can't, I go into a shop and I see like a game for like really cheap, and as much as I get great prices on games, and I don't need to buy any more bloody games anyway, but I can see the kind of limitations I've put on myself. So I think for that reason, I would be interested in one. But I've got to say, I mean, and obviously I wouldn't say anything if I did, but I haven't heard anything about a PS5 Pro or dev kits or anything like that. So they better hurry up because
Yeah.
they're meant to come out
If it's this
this year, I
year,
think.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's there's no reason why I would know necessarily, because I'm sure it'd probably be internal at Sony if they
True.
were being rolled out. But yeah, fingers crossed it will be a thing. I know that Xbox said that they've got some hardware coming out in December, so I'm sure that they'll probably want to at least answer to that. But yeah, I think with games like Final Fantasy, I think it shows that unfortunately it
Right.
is needed. But I think we've spoken about it before. I think the fact that 4K gaming, when it comes to like PCs, is not really that attainable unless you are willing to spend like £3,000 on a PC. But unfortunately, because games consoles are in people's like living rooms, and 4K TVs are basically the norm now,
Yeah.
it has kind of put consoles at this disadvantage where they have to hit this super high resolution, still be affordable, and still hit high FPS. So obviously 99% of people don't care about that. They're just like, oh, I want 60 FPS 4K, why can't I do it? But yeah, if I'm sure you're aware, like if you've got a 4K monitor and a PC, to get 60 FPS at 4K is not easy,
And
and
not
it's not cheap.
using, whatever Nvidia stuff to,
Yeah,
upscale.
putting everything on low or whatever. So it's yeah, it is necessary, and hopefully, just because we're getting more and more used to developing at 4K and things like that, that the PS5 Pro could be super optimized and hopefully deliver a really good experience. But I think people who say, "Oh, why do we need this?" are kind of lying to themselves. Because every game you play, if you want to play it with the best fidelity, you're gonna have to play at 30 FPS, which is just not across the board good enough, really. So yeah, fingers crossed it does come. But yeah, it's something that me and my friends sort of say. We haven't heard anything, and we would have thought we probably would have. But
Yeah.
if I had, I wouldn't be saying anything right now.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean the PS5 box, it says 8K on it. So I mean, what do we need
Yeah,
what do we do with
yeah,
PS5 Pro? 8K
yeah. I
should be
don't.
here.
I still don't know what that means. I've
It's
still yet to
garbage.
really see an 8K TV outside of like at the weird shopping centers where they have like the big like 95,000-inch TV on
Yeah.
show. Um, so yeah, it's just all stuff to try and push hardware, isn't it?
It's nuts. Yeah, 8K is kind of it's I could see it for I don't even know where there's a world where that becomes the reality, the standard, because it's like streaming 8K content. That sounds like a huge data load to be transferring. And I guess you can have discs to do it, but then we're going like progressively more and more diskless as we go into these years. So it's like, how are you going to deliver 8K streaming? I don't know. But I am I am excited for PS5 Pro just for the idea of like new hardware coming in, but
Mm.
I feel like there's times where my PS5 does fine, but then you're right. There's games where it's like there's a huge trade off if it's trying to do 60, and we're just at that point where it's now struggling. It seems like it hasn't been that long, but now it's already
Yeah,
struggling.
yeah,
So it's interesting.
yeah.
I just like to see new hardware, so hopefully this does come out and we get to have a new cool thing to look
And
at.
hopefully it doesn't look like a piece of shit, like
Yeah.
both the PS5 and the PS5 Slim does.
I wonder. I think we're gonna see if you look at the PS4 to PS4 Pro, they just like added another little like level to it because it had the little
Yeah,
perforations or whatever. I imagine we get the same kind of effect where it's like they add another cut in the plastic or whatever, but it's gonna evoke the same PS5, it just looks slightly different somehow. I imagine.
yeah. I'm sure they'll keep that kind of winged style. Yeah, they've kind of shot themselves in the foot now by having to stick with that. I guess, but then again, like oh no, the PS3 was a slim, wasn't it? It wasn't a
Right.
pro. But yeah, we'll see. It's always exciting when you hear about new hardware and then like waiting to see it for the first time. But hopefully it's at least nice or something.
Now, my next worry is what's the price on this thing going to be? Because you have the PS5 standard not really dropping in price. We had the slim model come out, and they kind of adjusted the prices for that to basically be the same as what we paid for originally. So with the PS5 Pro, how much more performance would you be getting, and then what kind of dollar amount they're going to put on it? I don't know if it's the same kind of thing you think about in the UK, but when the PS3 launched in the US, it was $599. At least one of the starting points was, which is basically like $600. It's a load of money back in whatever 2008, 2007. And as we get into the future now with inflation and stuff, it's like we're going to see consoles that are going to be that price if we're at least like the Pro version. So do they avoid
And it's
that?
not really. I mean, it's a very difficult conversation to have being in the UK because it just shows how different the economy is now. Because when the PS3 came out, it was £425 in the UK and obviously $599 in the US. But that was the conversion rate at the time, for close to 2-to-1 kind of thing. But now we're seeing most things are priced the same, whether it's dollars or pounds. So
yeah,
$600 for you now would be £600 here. So whilst you've got the same price, figuratively, as back in 2007, was it 2007, 2006?
I want 2007.
Yeah.
2006.
We would be seeing about a £200 increase over that. I think if it was to be, because how much is the PS5? $450?
Roughly, $450 for the discless. I think around $500 for the standard.
Yeah. So we've already gone over our PS3 price with the PS5. Obviously, a completely different climate nowadays. I mean, £425 back then was a lot more than £450 is now. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it might break the next 100, so it might be like 500, 550, I think maybe. Don't think it would go as far as 600. I don't even think it would go above 550, to be honest. Just because everyone is skint at the moment. No one has any money, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure. It's kind of an unknown, I guess, because I know people like to compare them to computers, but you can't really because they're just completely different architecture, differently made, and obviously sell differently. So you can afford to sell maybe at a little bit more of a loss, but it'll be interesting to see for sure. I just hope it's not too expensive because, like I said earlier, I want one, but if it's like £600, I won't be getting one.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we'll see. But this thing's dropping this year. We should be getting more rumors soon, or it ends up not, dropping this year. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Now we got moving on, Callum. Ghost of Tsushima coming to PC. Sony announced on both Twitter and PlayStation blog that Ghost of Tsushima's PC port will arrive on May 16th. It'll be the director's cut release of the game, which first launched in August 2021. Features all the goodies, including the excellent Iki Island expansion and the multiplayer-focused Legends mode. I'm sure it'll have all the 4K, crazy awesome settings that you find on PC. But I'm loving this. I want to see more of these PC releases. What do you think about this?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's really cool. I think Ghost of Tsushima is one of those games that just I don't think about much anymore, but when I do think about it, I just remember how much I loved it. Yeah, it's a game I'd like to play again. I know there is a PS5 version with the DLC, but I just don't think I'd have the bandwidth to do that, to play through it again. But yeah, it's an awesome game, so it's nice to know that more people are going to get to play it.
Yeah, same. Excited. Moving on, we got Gravity Rush 2 is reportedly being remastered for PS5 and PC. It's from PlayStationLifestyle.net. A new report claims that Gravity Rush 2 is being remastered for the PS5 and PC. Report of the remaster comes from Discord user Orangi, who currently or accurately leaked information pertaining to the Gravity Rush movie in the past. According to them, fans can expect news on the remaster sometime around May this year and a release later in the summer. This is exciting because I'm a newfound fan of Gravity Rush and didn't finish the first one. Very excited to jump into the second, but I'm kind of waiting to see what that remaster would look like if this thing is real. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it makes sense considering we knew about the movie that's going to be coming, so it makes sense for them to kind of try and make some money off of that kind of hype.
Mhm.
But yeah, like you said, both kind of new fans to the series. I haven't finished the first one yet. I'm very close. Again, similar to what I was saying earlier about Final Fantasy, I just got caught up doing a lot of the side things. I will finish it, and I do really want to play the second one. Whether or not I wait for the PS5 remaster or just play the one that exists, I'm not too sure. I'll have to look into how it is, the sort of normal version. But I think the only thing with Gravity Rush is, especially the first one, is it's so bloody annoying at times. Like, it makes me
Mm.
so mad. It just is so fiddly and annoying and finicky, but it is really good. And the story's really cool, and the vibe's really cool. So yeah, it's nice to kind of see it getting this resurrection around the time that me and you have both sort of got into it for the first time. So it's good
Yep.
timing.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that, and I haven't played the sequel, but I imagine a lot of the movement kind of stuff is the same, or just like the way the game progresses is the same. You mentioned that
Mm.
same frustration, so hopefully there's kind of a just up to date,
Yeah,
updates that are made,
yeah.
current day updates that just kind of help the flow of the gameplay.
Yeah, I think just from playing it, you can tell that it's not necessarily the mechanic. The mechanic's really cool in what you're doing. It's just the way you like stick on certain things, like a little fence, and then you like end up falling, and it just throws it. It's just some of the trials are like very unforgiving, and again really just irritating. It's just one of those games where it's not fun to fail, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not
Right.
like there's so many games where if you make a mistake, you're like, oh yeah, like, and you learn from it. But in Gravity Rush, I just feel like everything's against you, like
Yeah.
with those kind of controls. Um, but yeah, but it kind of goes to show how good like the game is in general. That I'm still happy to play it and really want to finish it. It's just really cool. The characters are really cool. The art style is really cool. Um, Again, I think it was good that I didn't really know much about it before I played it, and then when I did, it kind of took me by surprise. And I think when I first started playing the first one, I did have a quick look at like Gravity Rush 2, and it looks a lot bigger, a lot more like
Oh.
populated, and a lot more colourful and different. So yeah, really really excited to try that out. But yeah, that's good to know. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this to see whether it's worth me waiting or just jumping into Gravity Rush 2, because I think I've got it for some reason. It must
Okay.
be
Yeah.
like a PlayStation Plus game or something at some point. But yeah, we'll have to see.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited. We'll see more of that soon, hopefully. We got next one here. Stellar Blade demos published, then deleted from the PlayStation Store. This was just Saturday. 45-minute demo of the upcoming PS5 exclusive Stellar Blade was added quietly to the PlayStation Store earlier today, just half an hour after it went live. However, the free trial, which had not been formally announced or advertised, was mysteriously pulled offline again. Any demos that were downloaded were deactivated instantly. One player on Reddit said, played, it's very good. Upset I can't play more, to be honest. Combat was really fun, and you can't just hack and slash. I like the idea of a demo of this game because we saw this in the state of play, the last one, and it looks really interesting. And so the fact that of hopefully at some point soon, because I don't remember the actual date, and I'll look it up, this thing's going to launch. But if they're planning a demo, which seems like that's the case, I am very much interested to try this game.
Yeah, I want to say it can't have been March. Was it May? Maybe. I know it's not very far away, is it?
It can't be. It's
Um,
this year,
April. So
April. Okay.
next month. But yeah,
So yeah.
strange thing to happen. Um, but I'm more interested in the thinking behind that picture that you've included in
Yeah. So
the
there's been a bunch
document.
of these
I
popping
was
up
waiting for
online.
there to be, yeah, I was waiting for there to be like some context, but there doesn't seem to be. So yeah, explain yourself.
It's just, yeah. So this has been popping up online before the demo. Was some of the skins that you can apparently unlock in Stellar
Mm.
Blade, and one of them in particular is just like a flesh tone. Looks like this lady's naked.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
And
It's nice.
so if I can put my pre-order now, if I can place two pre-orders, if that'd be great.
Yeah,
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 it's looking
you've sold two copies by
right.
including that.
Yeah, so that's maybe
um,
what we're gonna get with this game. I don't remember the rating. Is this like an M-rated game? It's not like
yeah,
she's like fully blown,
well,
but
in
it seems
America it
adult.
definitely will be. You guys hate anything to do with sex over there, don't you? In terms of
Violence
ratings
we
and
love, but
things.
yeah, sex is a
Oh
no-no.
yeah, 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 yeah. No sex, no. Not in the Christian states of America.
Right.
But no, yeah, maybe it's like rated. I'm sure it'd be at least M. Yeah, it'd be interesting because in the UK we have like the kind of PEGI ratings, which
Yeah.
can sort of go up to like 18, but not many games get that. So it'd be interesting to see if it got that. Honestly, I don't know how the UK rates stuff against like sexual things. Not saying that the game is inherently that
Right.
like way inclined, but yeah, I'm not sure how the UK and PEGI sort of handle those kinds of things. So, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see. It's a game that actually has been growing on me weirdly, not because of that picture, but it just the kind of. I think when I first saw it, I didn't really know anything about it, so it's kind of a lot to take in. But I think the more people have been talking about it, the more I've been learning about it. It does, yeah, it seems like a game I might end up picking up, to be honest. And yeah, if that's a pre-order skin, then I better get pre-ordering.
Yep. And it reminds me, there's a Switch game that has a female character with like really long hair. And I know a lot of the outfits can get kind of, scandalous. I forget the name of the series. It's a well-known series. It's very much like Devil May Cry
Bayonetta.
kind of. There you go.
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me, it's like it's still in line with that, like
Mm.
looking at the image, there's no, nipples or anything. I think maybe they're just doing
Yeah.
exactly what they need to do to fit whatever
Exactly. Yeah.
general rating. And so, but
Yeah, because you'd
I'm all for it.
assume like the higher the rating, it would get like less sales maybe. But I've
Right.
just
I think
seen
they're
so
gonna.
the ESRB have rated it M for mature.
Okay.
I'll just see what the PEGI rating is.
I did see
Yeah,
that.
18. It's got 18.
Okay.
Jeez, okay.
So we're going full blown out there.
Yeah,
I'm for it.
yeah. Now I want to get it even more.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I've been
Uh,
interested to see what exactly it's rated that for because from what I've seen in like the trailers, like yes, it is a little bit, saucy, but it's nothing like crazy. I mean, if you're an
right.
adult, you
Right.
just understands that like nice behinds exist.
Right.
I've played lots of games where the male protagonist has got a nice bum.
Yep.
So I don't know, but yeah, 'cause I can't remember. Was it violent in the trailers? Like, was there
It
violence or?
didn't look like I have some B-roll pulled up, and it's just kind of general like monster combat, nothing crazy like Gears of War like style like blood and
Yeah,
guts. So maybe it's just the slight sexuality, or there is more violence that we haven't seen.
here we go. I've got so the ESRB actually have like a whole website, and it says this is an action adventure RPG in which players assume the role of a super soldier battling an invading alien force. Players use blades, machine guns, and laser blasters to kill enemies. The game depicts some female characters in revealing costumes,
Hmm.
e.g., deep cleavage, skin tight, and flesh toned bodysuits,
Yeah.
with breasts that jiggle during combat.
Oh no.
And the word shit appears in the game. But it does also say that some cutscenes depict close up images of impalement, dismemberment, and decapitation. So it's because of the jiggly, but it's because of the jiggly breasts.
Yeah.
That's the entire reason it's got.
You can have one jiggly boob, two, it's M rating.
Yeah. But Final Fantasy's got tons of jiggly boobs, so that's not rated 18.
That's the thing. It's like it's kind of per release where they really decide, okay, how lenient are we? How strict are
Yeah.
we? Yeah.
I think this is a revelation. This ESRB ratings thing. I'm gonna have to read through. I'm just reading through the Final Fantasy one now. Yeah, that would be fun
Yeah.
reading.
That's awesome. Well, we'll see if this demo comes out soon. We're getting close to the last month of release, so I imagine by April we got to get a demo of this thing.
Yeah.
All right, Cam, we'll end up on the bigger news article that happened the past month or so. It was lit the internet on fire, and I think everyone really freaked out over what seemed like nothing, but we didn't know for a while what was going on. So this is a big Xbox update. Could have been an email. So we ended up with 4 Xbox games are going multi-platform. Phil Spencer declined to specify which games are going multi-platform. This was in real time. Eventually, we got the 4 games that were going multi-plat. So we got Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Sea of Thieves, and Grounded. In that reveal business update, they said Game Pass isn't coming to PS5 or Switch. And then also tied to that, Xbox is working on a next-gen platform with some new hardware coming out in the years to come of some kind of like crazy advanced technology is what they say. But what do you think going back to this time where we didn't know what was happening? It seemed like Phil Spencer was chiming in on Twitter saying like, we hear you, we see you, we have more to say on this. And they said, cool, we'll see you in 2 weeks. In those 2 weeks, the internet just melted because everyone assumed Xbox is dead. This thing is falling apart. What's going to happen? When really, it wasn't that big of a crazy scene. But I think letting the internet think about it for 2 weeks and just speculate, maybe, in my mind, did some kind of like just damage on the surface where it's just how you interpret Xbox, how you look at them as a company. But it ended up being not that crazy, in my opinion. But what do you think as far as what was eventually said and released?
Yeah, I think it highlighted the just like psychopaths that frequent the internet. I saw like, to be fair, I was actively looking for it just because I'd heard like people talking about it.
Freaking
But
out.
there's people that have like that would have like Xbox in their Twitter bios and they've removed it and like changed their Twitter handles and everything
Yeah.
because of it. Like legitimately, that's like them being like an actual adult. So yeah, there was a lot of funny stuff like that. Obviously, Xbox is not going anywhere. I think most people understood that. But yeah, it's cool to see these games go cross-platform. I actually saw Hi-Fi Rush on the store on PlayStation, which was interesting to see. But yeah, Hi-Fi Rush is probably the only game out of those that I will play. But I'll probably play it on Xbox just because it's on Game Pass. So I don't have to pay anything more than I already do. But Grounded's great as well. Grounded's a game I played when it first sort of came out in early access, and yeah, those two I assume will be the bigger ones. I know Sea of Thieves is also meant to be pretty massive, but I just don't. I'm just not in that space, so I don't know much about it. And obviously, Pentiment I know has found a very kind of enraptured audience too. So yeah, 4 great games that it's always good to just have more people able to play them, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like the games as we were talking about these 4, it's like, oh, well, these are games we've already played, and like we both love PlayStation, play on PlayStation, but we've played these other games on Xbox or on PC, so it's like really not the end of the world. These games exist. If you're a gamer, most of the time you have at least another console. I understand. I guess there's people that just they just buy their one, they're just die hard, nothing else matters to them.
Mhm.
But I think in reality, there's a lot of us that dabble in all these other different ecosystems and have played this stuff. So it's not a doom situation. And it only benefits us as players to have all these different ways we can play it, all these different
Mhm.
platforms that we can access these games on.
Yeah.
And it means more sales. It's beneficial for the devs. So it's not the craziest thing in the world to see this happen.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it just brings to the forefront how weird some people are that they can't just enjoy. You know, a lot of people I'm sure do have just one console because they're expensive.
Right.
But they can't just enjoy the games they get on that console. Like they have to make sure that other platforms are suffering in some way in order for them to kind of justify how much they can enjoy it. And
Yeah.
it's just a complete psychotic way of thinking is the nicest way I can put it. Like I like PlayStation simply because that's where I have played most of my games. Like literally no other reason. I had a PS2 playing like Jack and Daxter and all these games that I loved, and my brother's got an Xbox 360, so I got to play 360 games. And then when the PS3 came out, I got a PS3 mainly for like Resistance Fallen Man and Motorstorm, and then since then I've just that's the ecosystem I've been involved in. That's where I've had my like profile. That because it was around that time. Even when the 360 first came out, Xbox Live obviously was revolutionary, but it was so new, no one really understood what it was going to become. And so I kind of had that same revelation on PS3, creating my PSN account, playing Resistance Fallen Man online, playing Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare online. And it was all very new kind of a new space for me to really get into. And obviously, we all know how that how that went in the end. You know, it engulfed gaming, that kind of ecosystem where you have your your game history, all of your trophies, which obviously came a little bit later, things like that. So I just primarily play on PlayStation because that's where I like to kind of have my. It's going to sound really cringy, but for me to look back at my like legacy of games I've played. Um, but you know, I play. You know, I said to you earlier, I play Persona 3 Reload. That's a game I've been super excited about. I'm playing it on Xbox because I can either get it on Game Pass or pay £60 for it on PlayStation. Why would I pay? I mean, there's some games I would do that. I would pay the money because I want to play them. I have a Series S. Obviously, I've got my PC as well, but you know, sometimes you don't want to be sat at a desk playing certain games as well. So yeah, I think people just need to realize that they can just play games wherever they want, and if the console you're on doesn't have the game you want to play, then like there's probably hundreds of other games you could just play instead. I mean, I don't think that the problem of not having a game to play is a real problem that exists. There's so many games. I mean, my backlog is like growing infinitely. So yeah, it's just I think people like that are just genuine psychopaths that if it wasn't for social media, we just wouldn't even know existed. Fortunately. But yeah, that's sort of my view on it. Is that the place you play, if you can only afford one console, should be where you know your kind of main game library is as well. And that's another thing that is obviously a new thing is digital game libraries. All this money invested, you know, you don't you that has so much more worth to you than what another console's doing or what games are being released anywhere. Like it's just
Right.
it's just getting a little bit ridiculous.
And we're also moving into a day and age with the games industry where games are so expensive to make and the margins are so thin and you have to sell as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
It's like otherwise studios get shuttered. It's always been like that, but it's like it seems like even more so now where it's like
Mm-hmm.
these games really need to at least make their profit back. And so you look at Xbox and that makes total sense to just release as wide as you can. It seems like the sales data that we get console wise comparing them, they're not selling as much as PlayStation. So release the software everywhere
Mm-hmm.
so that you can recoup these costs. And I've seen people online when in reaction to like PlayStation fans, I go like, oh, if it was the other way around, you wouldn't be so chill about it. Like if Last of Us 2 was on Xbox or what have you. And it's like my interpretation would be, I don't give a shit. Play it wherever.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not married to these things.
Yeah.
It's cool in like when you look at like history and lineage with PlayStation, that stuff is fine and nice. Wearing a T-shirt with a logo on, it's like yeah, I do that too. But it doesn't really matter where these games are.
Yeah, and I think Xbox haven't been that kind of brand in a long time. You know, I remember when I was young, and I mean, I grew up in I was very privileged to grow up in that era. Xbox 360, PS3, Halo. You know, Halo 3 was massive multiplayer wise. Gears of War, of course. All these games that at the time people. I mean, like I said, I had a PS3, and I used to get like ridiculed at school about it because everyone would be playing Halo and Gears of War. And I used to go around friends' houses and play them. And again, my brothers had a 360 anyway. And I ended up getting a 360 slightly later and later on. But it's around that time that was when 360 or Xbox had this kind of branding where it was like like Master Chief, like Halo, Gears of War. Everything was like intrinsically linked to Xbox. Same way Last of Us, Uncharted, all these games are with PlayStation. At that time, if Halo was come to PlayStation, you like obviously again, like us as people who play games don't necessarily care, but you would think like, what reason do they have to do that? You know, everyone has an Xbox because of Halo. But now Halo's dead, Gears is dead. Well, Gears is actually pretty good. Gears 5 I quite liked, but not dead. That's a bit harsh, actually.
Just dormant.
But you know what I
Not
mean?
as
Yeah,
popular,
like
yeah.
they're nowhere near the heights that they had. The games are nowhere near the quality. The teams that made them are either gone. You know, Bungie and outweighed by PlayStation, actually. So I think we're now at a position where if someone's like, "Oh, well, why don't PlayStation release Last of Us on Xbox?" It's like, well, why would they? Like, do you really think that the amount of money it would take to make sure these games like work on Xbox, build the game for Xbox, develop it for Xbox. Like how like do you really think they'd make many sales? Like the whole reason
Right.
Xbox are doing this is because they don't have as many people playing on their platform, like primarily. So there is also an element to it where you do have to think like, yes, in an ideal world, like I would like to see games on every platform. I like to see everyone be able to play every game, you know, with the finite amount of money they have. But also, you need to understand that, like, it is also at the end of the day a business decision, and like we were just saying, you know, about all these layoffs and things. Like, we don't want businesses to make poor decisions so that people lose their jobs, and I think that to do it the other way around, it makes sense for Xbox. They need to have more people playing their games. PlayStation don't need more people playing their exclusives. I mean, you look at Spider-Man, how much that sold, and everything like that. So yeah, I think there's quite a bit to it, but the main thing is that people just need to stop caring, like because these businesses are going to make these decisions to do what's best for them, and we just need to not care and not worry about it or speculate about it because at the end of the day, there's so many games. Like there's so many games, and it stresses the hell out of me that people are kind of worried about like one game or four games even going to another platform. It's like there's thousands of games everywhere on Game
Yep.
Pass, PlayStation Plus, everything. I just saw there's like 4 Tales games that just came to PlayStation Plus, which I've never played. I've never really even thought about playing them, but now that they're there and available, that's 4 more games added to my backlog. And
Yeah.
it's just so yeah, people just need to play games more than fucking sitting on Twitter and moaning about stuff. Like if they were playing games, wouldn't have anything to moan about.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great way to end this whole subject. But yeah, my frustration was, I guess, just in the way this whole shitstorm was handled. And I get that Microsoft they're a multi-billion, I guess, trillion-dollar company. They're huge. They're up there. I think they just passed Apple with like just the highest amount of money generator, at least that they're sitting on as far as a corporation. So they're not just going to make a decision willy nilly. So when this stuff started
Mhm.
happening, Phil Spencer jumped on Twitter to try and tell people that they're going to make an announcement. I didn't like that it took 2 weeks. And then for the announcement to be this, I would have liked something right then and there just to like squash it, to not let the internet
Yeah,
rage on fire.
yeah,
But it's like, and then there's even when they did that business update, they didn't announce officially those 4 games, because the reality is there was a Nintendo Direct and there's stuff tied to these. There's deals in play,
mm,
or it's like we're going to announce this
mm,
when this thing happens, this thing happens. So I get that. It was just frustrating to see to let them allow the internet to just like
yeah.
just speculate wildly, and then which
It,
I think kind of
it
hurts the
does
brand.
seem it seems a little bit squirrely. I think from people like Phil Spencer, who I love that he plays loads of games. I think that's great, and I think he seems like a proper like he obviously loves games. I think that's the best person to have. You know, we were saying earlier about people in these positions usually are like a type of person. I think Phil Spencer kind of blows that open slightly because, I mean, yeah, he plays loads and loads of games. Looking at his sort of stuff he posts, but I think the problem is he's a bit too friendly with certain people, which means he gets in lots of conversations where he says lots of things
Mm,
which might not necessarily be true. He might just be kind of saying things to keep people sweet, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I think he's obviously just trying to say what people want to hear, and I think lots of people do that. But the problem is he's the head of a super massive company where you do
right.
unfortunately have like people who are fanatical about your brand. So yeah, I think the messaging needs to either be clearer or he just needs to shut up and just like treat it like a business, which is what it is. Because it's just bizarre that he says all these things like people on Twitter,
Right.
like, "Oh no, don't worry about the, no, it's not this," and then he's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do an update on an Xbox podcast." It's like,
Yeah.
what is going on? So yeah, it is just all a bit strange optically. But yeah, I think it's difficult for me because honestly, like, I just don't like people are like making it their entire existence online to talk about this stuff, and it's like, and I don't mean as like a pundit, I mean as like a as if they're like involved in it. And I think that's the side of things that just makes it immediately boring to me, because there's no way to really have to engage in some kind of discourse about it where
Right.
it's not like about people's personal feelings or people's in psychosis that they have, and being like permanently online. So I think it just makes me like just not want to even look at what people are even saying about it, because it's just so tiring and boring.
Yeah, it becomes a religion for some people, and it's like then you
Yeah.
can't really be objective and have a conversation. Yeah, exactly. I do want to end on this part of their business update was something that kind of struck me. So this is Xbox is working on a next gen platform. There's some exciting stuff coming out in hardware that we're going to show this holiday, and we're also invested in the next generation roadmap, where they say, "quote What we're really focused on is delivering the largest technical leap you will have ever seen in hardware." And this makes me think with Xbox, I don't think their problem is hardware. I think it's just the games. I
Mhm.
don't think them doubling down on this crazy advanced next Xbox, which I'm sure they're working on the next like actual technological leap, like they're saying. But I just don't think they need to put all their eggs in that basket necessarily, where
Yeah.
it's like that's what's going to win people over. The Xbox currently is fine. It's just there isn't a lot of strong games that compete with PlayStation. It's doubling down on the software. I think we're
Mhm.
seeing a lot of studios from them that haven't made anything yet in a while,
Yeah.
and that's what's frustrating to me. It's like
Yeah.
if I see them go the route of, oh, okay, we're going to make the best console next, it's like that's not the problem, guys. It's the games. So
Yeah.
that's what worries me about them.
Yeah. It's a bit of a weird one, and I think just the fact that they're like, oh, it's the biggest technical leap ever seen. It's just such unquantifiable like marketing speech, like
Yeah,
because I think what people immediately will think is like, oh my god, if you think of how big the leap between PS2 and PS3 was, this is gonna be even bigger. Like, what does that mean? And it's like, well, no, because how do you measure technical leap? You can't. Well, you can. Well, actually, the thing is, you can in about a million different ways, which is why
sure.
it's clearly just marketing speech. Because it could be something stupid like, oh, this CPU, has got like the highest like base clock speed, which ultimately means nothing. But then it would technically be the highest technical leap or whatever. So,
Mm,
um, yeah, I don't know really how to feel about it. I mean, I guess we'll wait and see. I was again considering getting a Series X, mainly for my 4K Blu-ray player problem, and also because they're quite cheap at the
yeah,
moment in the UK, the Series X's. But then, yeah, and then I saw this, and and then obviously, as you know, I upgraded my PC, so I don't really need to now because I can just use that as an Xbox. But yeah, I don't know. Like you said, I don't really see who this is for, um, other than just giving these weird people online another talking point to bang the drums on, which does worry me. I do worry that they are kind of trying to feed this movement with things like this, because the things they say are so obscure and are able to be taken in so many different ways, and then these weird people online take this and make like a mountain out of essentially nothing. You see other companies like Nintendo or PlayStation that basically don't say anything like at all
right.
ever, really. Um, and I think that just means that there's less, because and I think that's the thing as well, is like you obviously have these weird fanaticals on, on all, who are tied to all brands, um, in terms of like games. But I think the problem is Xbox really feed it. They really, really feed it. They
Mm,
interact with these people. They constantly just saying stuff, which is always then turns out to be, oh well, no, that's not quite true, or things like that. Whereas PlayStation, to their detriment, sometimes they just don't say anything, and they only
right.
say things when they need to. And same with Nintendo. So, but because they're businesses, they don't care about people, and they don't pretend to. Whereas Xbox kind of do. So yeah, it is just annoying seeing all of these like it's like the hardware stuff as well. It's almost just like they just said it at the
Yeah.
end, like, oh, by the way, we're also making the greatest hardware of all time. It's going to be able to play on TVs that won't be out till 2030. And it's just, yeah, I just don't really. They just say things to say things, I think.
Yeah, and that's watching that BlackBerry movie. There's the exact this happens in that movie, and it's
Mm.
BlackBerry responding to the iPhone in a press conference with their investors and stuff, and just be like, also we're making this, and just like pulling something out of their ass
Yeah,
to just get the investors happy and make them seem
yeah,
like they have a competitive device. It's the same kind of vibe that I get
yeah,
just like talking in real time about this and hearing the most technological leap. It's like, yeah, we have that. It's PC hardware. That's where you get that
yeah,
technological leap. So that exists
yeah,
already. So there's that. You're going to compete with that. You're not.
yeah,
And then look at what Nintendo does. The Switch is 7 years old now. We're on the brink of maybe a Switch 2, but for 7-8 years, they've had this piece of shit hardware. It's garbage. It's a tablet,
yeah.
but
With
amazing games on
horrible
it.
controllers.
Yeah, horrible controllers, amazing games. Where it's like I bought it for those amazing games. So follow that maybe same kind of get some inspiration there. Where it's like they focus on the games, not the hardware, and
Yeah,
they absolutely blow everyone out of the water.
yeah.
So maybe having the most advanced technology isn't always going to,
No.
win you the race.
Yeah, they're just trying everything, I think. But
Yeah.
like you said, Microsoft have so much money because they
Right.
have so many other facets of and it work. We use Microsoft, like their Azure cloud services and everything, so we get to see all the different things they have, and they're huge. But it does kind of mean that they probably can be a bit more blasé, like, oh, we're gonna just do this,
Right.
like, and then we're gonna release Bethesda's new game on Game Pass day one, and who cares, kind of thing. And it's just like it is getting to that point where it's just kind of like, all right, you don't need to, you don't need to just keep showing how you can just sell everything at a loss.
Yeah. They have the money to
So
lose, basically.
they'll probably release this new hardware, and it will be like £100, and it'll be
Right.
like
Just
the
to
most powerful console in the world. Yeah, just to be like, we're Microsoft, look how much money we have.
just
Um,
please buy it.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like they've said it now, so now I'm interested, but I'm not holding my breath. It'll probably, I bet it'll be some kind of like Apple Vision thing or something, just something completely
Oh God.
like left field that we just did not expect from it. So yeah, we'll have
Or it has
to
a
wait
cup
and see.
holder, or it has wheels on it, so now it's something new.
See, now that would be something
Yeah.
that I would buy.
You drive it to work.
Yep, yep.
That'd be awesome. Well, Callum, we'll end it there for the week. They can find you online on Twitter at Bear Monroe, and then keep up with the show as well on Twitter at Plastic Car Pod. And I'm never going to call it X, so I'm just going to, it's a Twitter.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, yeah.
All right. That's fine. That's it for us this week. You can catch us next time. If you'll tell the people out there goodbye, Callum.
Goodbye.